think what has always been the issue is like, we've always done really good work. We've always had really good reputation and our customers are happy with us. I just never know where the money's going. You know, like we talked at breakfast the other day and with my wife and your wife, and I was saying, my wife would be like, hey, house payments due.
Yeah.
You know, Friday and it's Monday, and I've seen the bank account, you know. So the first thing I did was, this is gonna be my salary, and it was slightly less than what I was making. I mean, it was pretty bold. You know, it wasn't like, I'm gonna pay myself $500 a month, build my business. It was like, this business has to pay our bills first. Instead of I'm going to pay employees and pay vendors and all this. This first thing it has to do is pay us, because otherwise it's not worth it. To me, that was important because I knew it was important to her. So I have set that. We've been in business, it'll be 2 years at the end of July, and I have not missed a paycheck, and neither have my guys.
That's fantastic. Welcome back to the SynkedUP podcast. I'm out here with Craig Scheller in Kansas City, Missouri. Out on the job site. I mean, check out our armchairs here. This is as legit as it gets.
Yeah, this is better than the recliner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, this puts up with Josh Sutton's office.
I don't know about that. That looks pretty nice.
Well, hey, it's a pleasure to be back out here in your boots on the ground real life, just a day or two after hanging out with you in Nashville.
Yeah, appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always a good time. The barbecue's good, the people are good, and the job sites are pretty incredible. Yeah. My whole thing with these podcasts is just like, let's have a good time. And what I always want to do is like help kind of like get in behind the scenes of like, okay, so you see this on Instagram, it looks great, it looks glamorous. Right. But like, what's all the struggles and the realities behind it, you know? And what I would like to do with each of these episodes is have someone listen to your story and potentially learn something that you had to learn the hard way, but could help someone avoid a challenge, you know. So, yeah. But yeah, why don't we just start with, tell us who you are here on the podcast and tell us what the story is of Scheller Outdoor Living.
All right, well, it's a long one, but I'll try to summarize it. But I'm Craig Scheller with Scheller Outdoor Living based in Kansas City. I've been in the industry probably 20 plus years, almost 25 probably. I started with a mowing business back when I was 18, coming out of high school. And went to college at a local community college for a grounds and turf management degree. I'm 4 hours away from completing that, or something like that.
Oh, you still haven't completed
the class.
it?
Yeah,
oh,
I dropped the class at the end. I was like, forget it.
Swimming pools was way better.
It was probably chemistry or one of those that I was just like, really, come on. So, yeah, I'm real close to having a 2-year degree that took me 4 years and counting. So I had a business then. I was really young. Carried a lot of cash in my pocket. Didn't know what I was doing with money, and I've always been really good at doing the work, but have always had a little bit of trouble tracking the money, you know, and knowing where to tell it to go and what to do with it and how much am I making and all that stuff. So I had that business for about 4 years, and then I went and worked for some different companies. I've done home construction, framing, excavation.
As an employee? As an employee,
yep. And I worked for another landscape company running their hardscapes for a little bit. I worked for another large company in 2006 and 7, managing their mowing division. So they had 3 in-house crews and 3 subcontracting crews, and I managed all that, plus their snow in the wintertime. So that was kind of a good opportunity to learn, you know, management and that kind of thing. But I think every time I went to work somewhere, it was like, I always had that urge, like I could do it better, or I would take my ideas to people or my superiors, and they would be like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that right now. Yeah. And I'm like, well, this makes so much sense to me, you know. But so I in 2007, I went to work for a lumber yard, and based on my experience, I was estimating for houses. So the salesman would bring me the estimation, and I would design like floor joist plans and trusses and stuff like that. And then they'd estimate and sell off that. And then I got laid off. I got married in 07, laid off in 08. We just bought a house. Things were starting to crash. So I started another lawn and landscape business called Scheller Lawn and Landscape. That was when I really got into hardscapes. I had done a little bit in my previous business, but it was in 2010. I really started getting acquainted with the Belgard rep here in Kansas City, and he really helped me. And one of the distributors I was working with, they were feeding me work, and we were doing a really good job, and had really good reputation with our vendors and our employees and all that stuff. So I think what has always been the issue is, like, we've always done really good work. We've always had really good reputation, and our customers are happy with us. And then I just never know where the money's going. Mm-hmm. You know, like we talked at breakfast the other day and with my wife and your wife, and I was saying, you know, it was like my wife would be like, hey, house payments due. Yeah. You know, Friday, and it's Monday, and yeah. I've seen the bank account, you know. So I'm just like, there's kind of a rush to go get that and bring it home, whether it's a draw or like, hey guys, we got to get this job done, or whatever it is, to get that push to get a little bit of money in the bank. But there's no way to live. Yeah. Like, so in that business, I was always like, I got to pay my employees first, I got to pay my vendors first, and then we'll take whatever's left over. Because I wanted to keep a reputation, and I knew that I was supporting other people's families as well. So it was very important for me to make payroll every time, mm-hmm. even if that meant we, you know, were short or whatever. And every business I had when married, my wife's had a consistent paycheck, you know, but it's sometimes it's not enough, or sometimes we need a little bit more. And so in 2015, I got really burned out just because I was working really, really hard and had not much to show for it except some really cool pictures, mm-hmm. you know. And so I went to work for a landscape supply company. They were purchased by SiteOne about a year and a half after I started working for them. So I built their hardscape program. SiteOne purchased that. They had two distribution centers, and I was helping manage their hardscape division on both locations. And then we, with SiteOne, I kind of took on more of a territorial role and helped different areas within our region build their hardscape program. And then I went to work for a porcelain tile company called Mirage, and they're sold through Belgard. And I was a territory rep for the central U.S. So in 2020, when the pandemic came, I was working from my basement, working at home. I was getting paid, same amount. Still, if I was making sales, I was still getting commission. I was just getting bored, and really wanted to have the urge. You know, all through these years of distribution, guys were like, you think about getting back into contract? And I'm like, no way, it's not happening. I'm not gonna do it. So
was that statement coming from your past experience with struggling financially?
I think so, and I think it was like what I try to tell people is, like, when I went to work for somebody, this may sound weird, but I don't work for a paycheck. Like, I always find something that I really love to do. Yeah. I'm in an industry that I'm very passionate about, so I negotiate at the beginning, and then I just go do my job. So it's like, so as long as our bills are being paid, because my wife kind of handles the personal, mm-hmm. you know, stuff at home. So I want to make sure if we have a check in the bank and she can pay the bills, and we're putting a little bit back or whatever, that's really all I cared about. And I was just going to go do my job to the best of my ability, and if I made some commission, that was bonus, whatever. So when I made the statement, it was like, we're comfortable. I'm really enjoying getting out and not selling necessarily, but teaching. I use that as an opportunity to teach and consult, mm-hmm. and just become a really good sales rep that never really pushed product. You know, I was out there, how can I help? What do you need? You know, what challenges are you facing? I probably face those same challenges. You know, so that's the approach I took to sales. And it did really well for me because I was relatable. You know, I'd show up, when I started Mirage, they were like, you gotta wear slacks and a collared shirt. And I'm like, I'm gonna put some jeans and boots on, I'm gonna walk in the mud to this backyard, and I'm gonna talk to these contractors. And they're like, well, whatever, you know. So I think that was, you know, that meant more to them than some tile salesman.
Something relatable.
Yeah. So, so when I got back into, when we decided to get into contracting, I talked to my wife. I actually talked to Josh. He's like, well, it's a good time if you want to do it. I mean, it's busy. Yeah. We have too much work, you know. So I talked to her, and she's like, well, this is how it's going to be, because we had some issues the first time that were challenging. And so the biggest thing was I had been making a good income working for somebody else. So the first thing I did was said, this is going to be my salary. And it was slightly less than what I was making. I mean, it was pretty bold. You know, it wasn't like, I'm going to pay myself $500 a month, build my business. It was like, this business has to pay our bills first. Instead of, I'm going to pay employees and pay vendors and all this. This first thing it has to do is pay us, because otherwise it's not worth it. So to me, that was important because I knew it was important to her. So I have set that. We've been in business, it'll be 2 years at the end of July, and I have not missed a paycheck. And neither of my guys.
That's fantastic.
So that's been a big goal of mine. And my vendors are still paid. It may mean that there's not a bunch of profit, you know. It may mean that I'm working Saturdays and working late some nights. I've worked a few Sundays. I'm not super proud of it, but like, I know I'm still 2 years in the beginning of a business that I'm trying to build. And, you know, Travis and I had a conversation yesterday. It was like, you know, I don't want to work Saturdays. I want to get, you know, 40, 45 hours a week and call it a day. You know, let's go home, let's enjoy our families. And so it's good to have people on your team that kind of hold you accountable to that. Like, hey, we got to take a break. You know? So, and I got to have that communication, because I don't want them to feel like I'm killing them. You know, to get what we needed to done. But so it's been really fun to watch the business grow. And but I still, even at the beginning, I was saying I wanted all those things, but I tried some spreadsheets, and I tried, you know, another software, and I never could get it implemented, and I still was not sure what my numbers were, and I was just kind of using some industry standards, some old tricks in the past, and I was like, this isn't working, because I have no idea how much I'm making at the end. You know? So that's where we are here. So
aside from saying you're going to make your second go at it with contracting, aside from saying that this time it's got to pay our bills, and we got to take care of our family, and then it's going to grow up from that. Like, aside from that, is there anything else that you approach differently the second time around?
I knew that I wanted to do something that was going to challenge me, because I'd done contracting before, and I knew I could do it. So one thing I want to get across to a lot of guys that will say, hey, you've only been in business for 2 years, you're doing these amazing projects, you have all this equipment. I've been doing this for 25 years. So I'm not the guy that showed up and was like, yeah, I got a wheelbarrow and a truck, and I want to try my hand in hardscapes or landscape. Like, I've run businesses, I've run other people's businesses, and this time it has to work. You know, I'm 43 years old. Like, this is it. I don't want to do anything else. And I think that my approach was like, I knew I could go do 500, 600 square foot patios, put a landscape around them. I knew what I was not going to do was front yard landscapes, remulching, maintenance. I wanted it to be project based. And then, so before I knew I was going to start the business, I started calling pool manufacturers, because I had traveled a lot and seen how pools elevate projects. And that was kind of exciting to me. And I love running equipment. I love excavation portion of it. I wanted to challenge myself. So we've been doing pools for a year, but I was starting the process a year before that. So we had sold our first pool, and started in about August 1st of 2020, and then sold our first pool in November or October, somewhere in there. And we put our first one in June of last year, because they were delayed, like big time. So people think I started pools last summer. It was a process of getting it going, and a lot of people hanging up on me, and you know, not calling me back and saying, no, we're booked up.
Frustrating.
I had a good connection that said, call this guy at this company, and that paid off really big. That was part of my network of, you know, traveling.
There you go. So
all that stuff. That's where the
right there's an example for your
yes.
25 years in the industry.
Yes.
Helped you out.
Yeah. So I grew my network to not only national, but in some ways international, because our company was based in Italy.
Right.
You know, so I have a lot to pull from if I need help anywhere across the country. So
that's awesome.
So that was a big help.
So is there anything else that is there anything that made you say, no, I don't want to be working a job? I mean, you said you got bored, but like, what made you stay? You could have, like, I'm assuming, had a kind of a cushy corporate job for the rest of your life. What sucked you back in?
Well, it was, I felt like over 2.5 years, I spent a lot of time traveling the country and mostly central U.S., telling people about products, helping people, grow their book of business, helping contractors look at new ways of doing things. And I've always been someone that wants to keep learning. So I educate and I get educated. So I like to teach, but I also like to learn. So I don't always do things the same way. I'm always looking for ways to improve. So I think what was pushing me out was I was just getting a little bit like, I would just go, the people were fantastic, but it was like we were just going doing the same thing all the time, and that, I don't know if that sounds bad or not, but it's like I would travel 4 or 5 days a week, which was really hard, as you're probably learning. It's hard on the family, it's hard on everything, but also it was just like, okay, I've seen these people, we've done this, we've talked about this, like, just start doing it, so I guess that was where that came in. So just starting to get a little bit of boredom in the job itself, even though it was a really great job.
So what is the most difficult challenge you've had to overcome in this latest business on your second go around?
What I found in this business, I'm way more prepared.
Okay.
I'm way more organized. Logistically, we're usually in a good place.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to turning some of those duties over to other people. But I've really tried hard to stay ahead of everything. That's one thing I learned that helped me a lot in distribution was I used to be the guy that would call in and be like, hey, I need 10 pallets of this delivered tomorrow. And then when I started working that job, it was like people would do that to me, and I'm like, hey, we don't keep this in stock. And I would give the same excuses they would give me, and I was like, oh. So I started training the contractors to be like, hey, if you're booked for 3 months, can you give me your order like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 or 4 weeks? And we had contractors start doing that, and they're like, Craig, the service is so much better, I'm like, no, this is you. You're actually helping us do a better job.
Provide a better service,
And our projects we're booked almost a year, and our projects are 3 months long, usually 2 to 3 months. So it's pretty easy for me to keep that stuff straight.
What does your average project look like? Does every project have a pool?
We're starting one soon that does not.
Okay.
And it's for a family member, but it's still a pretty good size hardscape project and landscape. But yeah, pretty much everything we're doing now has a pool and has patio, landscape, some kind of wood structure, some kind of landscape around it. We provide the fence. We're basically general contracting backyards now. So instead of being a pool company that comes in and hey, we'll put a pool in and then we're leaving.
Show in and leave, exactly.
Then you're left to do with whatever, and there's no design and there's no plan. We come in and design the whole thing.
So a turnkey backyard.
Yeah, turnkey backyard.
Yeah.
And then we leave it ready to go.
That's awesome.
And it's been a huge selling point for us, even though the projects are elevated. It gives a good, it's better projects, better clients. People are looking to spend, the budgets that we're in right now. So.
What's the job that you've been the most proud of?
Haven't done it yet.
No? Still dreaming on it?
Yeah.
Still having a picture of it in your mind?
Yeah, I've always wanted to say that. No, we've done some really cool projects, and like every one we do, I'm like, yeah, this one's cool.
Yeah,
This one's cool. And like we're doing porcelain on another project, and we're gonna cut curves in it and do inlays, and it's gonna take some time, but that'll be really, really cool.
That'll look good for the gram.
Yes. Yeah. This one's gonna be awesome. It's gonna have. We're trying to get a pool house. Approved in this neighborhood. So like that's been a challenge, but mostly the challenges have come from like everybody's like, oh, I want to do pools, and it's challenging. It's the logistics are really hard. Playing weatherman's really hard. It's kind of like doing concrete.
Yeah.
It's like hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
You have to get ready and then wait, and then hurry up and get it done. And wait.
Yeah.
It's like you wait for these steps, and that's the most challenging thing we've probably done is pools, even though it's paid off the most.
Yeah, well, a pool will take a $60,000 backyard with hardscape and landscape and turn it into a $150,000 backyard, if not more.
And more,
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of really where they start.
Right.
So I know at Tuscan Landscaping, when we started doing pools, like we did it because people would call the pool guy when they wanted a backyard done.
Yeah.
That was the foundation of the project. And then usually the pool guy got everything else.
Yep.
And we wanted to come in and do everything else, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, well, I guess we're going to have to do the pools.
Yeah.
And when we did that, I mean, we literally grew our top line and the profit with it, by 70% over 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to be, you know, not run a ton of, not a huge crew or a lot of crews. Have a couple guys, good equipment like what you're running here. Like that thing looks expensive.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah. And but you're able to crank out and produce some really good revenue.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I've sold. What's crazy is like I used to, back in my first or second business or whatever, like when I started, I was shaking hands somebody a $6,000 estimate, you know.
Yeah, right.
And then they started going to 60 and 70,000, and now I'm selling $250,000 jobs.
Exactly.
And it's like, all right, we're a year out. So, and I've kind of said this to guys that are trying to get comfortable selling. You know, if you just be confident in selling it and be confident in what you can do, and don't worry about the no's. I mean, you want some no's, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you get a lot of yeses, you're probably not charging enough.
That's right.
So it's interesting as you get more comfortable selling projects that are more than the house you bought or whatever, or you know, we're going to do 2 projects and that's more revenue than we did in my last business in a year.
Right.
You know, and it completely elevates everything. And
it does.
And having the equipment, well, I mean, we're doing this with 3 of us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but we have a piece of equipment for all of us.
There you go. That's how you do employee retention, right? Some AC equipment.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah,
so.
It does. And people, you can have fun.
Yeah,
you know,
I might have to lift my chair back up.
I see the hydraulics lifting down.
I feel like I'm going to sit on the ground.
Well, we can wrap this up too. What's been the best advice that you were ever given in business?
And it's something I've kept telling others, and maybe this is advice I got that I didn't even think about, but it's like, don't let your checkbook dictate what your customers will pay for, because I think that's going back to what I was just saying about like, oh, I can't afford this.
I don't even
know how to hand them this. I can't afford this.
Yeah,
well, who cares?
Right.
Like, they can, or they wouldn't be calling you.
Yeah.
You know, and if they can't, then you shouldn't be doing it.
That's right.
You know, you have to get, because then you won't get paid for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most important thing, is don't spend your customers' money for them, you know, based on your.
And the other thing is like, don't let that fear cause you to shortchange yourself.
Right.
Because if you're like, oh, they'll never go for that, I'll shave off a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's shaving right into the cream, like that's right into your net profit, which is shortchanging yourself, which in turn leaves you without a choice because you end up shortchanging your family and your team.
And what we're doing now is referral based solely. I'm really not getting a lot off of just, you know, people aren't just calling me, which is fine. I don't have a lot of time.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, when you do a big project,
the expectation gets set by, hey, this guy did ours. It's fantastic. Hey, we went to a party in these people's backyard.
Yeah. And, how many projects are you doing in a year? I mean, is it like
4 or 5?
4 or 5. So there you go. You don't need 500 leads.
No, I don't want them.
You can get 20 leads and pretty much fill your calendar.
Yeah, my hope would be to get about 6 or 7 leads and sell about 4 or 5. I don't have to do as much work. I can do an appointment every other month.
There you go. So
pretty much we're just taking pool appointments right now. We're not doing any. If it doesn't have a pool, we're not even taking the appointment.
Yeah.
Because that takes some planning.
So is there anything in this second go around that SynkedUP helped you kind of accelerate your goals or your outcomes that you were shooting for?
Yeah. So before, I would look at the projects I was selling and be like, well, if I can get these done in a year, this is how much money I'll make in a year, right? But that's top line. So then that's unfortunately, I worked for a guy who looked at top line, and I looked at the top line, and I never knew what I made at the end. You know, I'd either spend it or just be like, oh, we didn't really track anything.
Or you look what's in the checking account.
Yeah. So the project we're on now is the first one I did in SynkedUP. So we're doing a project as well. We don't like to jump around and just work out with our pool schedule, but like the one we're really on right now, I bid before we did SynkedUP, so like right before. So I recreated it and we're tracking it. It's not pretty, but I think we'll be okay. And it's interesting the things I'm comfortable with and know how to do, those are a lot more safe than like the pools and the things that I was just trying to figure out how to do. bid.
Yeah, because in a big job like this, you can get a mistake that'll really set you back.
Set you back.
Yeah.
So this one I feel pretty good about, but even just where we are now, I feel like the pool part could be a little bit stretched. So that's what I'm learning, and that's what I'm going to take with the nice thing about being able to track the hours, track what we're actually doing. The guys are clocking in, they get it, they want to we're talking about what work area we're working on, and if we jump to one, it's like, hey guys, we need to switch. So that gets a little we're still trying to work that part of it out, or I can just go in at the end and kind of modify those things.
You can do that at the end of the day too.
Right. Yeah. So, but it's really nice to be able to go through and, hey, what do we use today? And we put that stuff in there. And
just keep track of it. In a long job like this, it can get out of hand.
Yeah. So that's been the tracking, being able to put everything into our overhead and know what we need to charge is huge. But also being able to track it and seeing if that was still enough, because I think where I'll struggle the most is labor. It's just not knowing exactly
how long something's going to take. Because at the end of the day, you can do an excellent job with budgeting, overhead recovery, estimating, but if you're not tracking it, you can't tell. Like a job costing is really in plain English. Where did I go wrong? Where did I go right? And then your next estimate gets better and more accurate, because you're like, oh, I went over on this, I'm going to adjust for that. I way overbid this, so I can maybe knock that back a bit, and you just get better and better with each estimate.
Yeah, and I think that we're a little bit more slow, and we do a little bit we're a little bit more detail oriented, so we're not super production based. So I think I need to learn that part of it too, and then adding time to get myself out a little bit. That's where I'm working right now.
Okay. Well, one last question, because I know your seat's sinking.
Yes.
What would you? Not everybody gets a second chance to take another go at it. I'd say in the contracting world, you're probably pretty fortunate being able to have another go at it like that. And
have a good wife.
Yeah, well, that's. I'm blessed to be able to say the same thing. But what would you say to folks that are in the same place you were 10 years ago, or whatever that time frame was, where you were at your first go at doing a contracting business and struggling to make your payroll and all of that? What would you, if you were speaking to someone that's in that situation right now, what would you tell them what would your advice be to them?
I would say that we're all we're contractors first.
Yeah.
And I think that's I think the two top businesses that fail is construction and restaurants.
Yeah, I think
because it's we're all we're go-getters, we're contractors, or they're really good cooks, or let's go crafts, let's go start a restaurant because I can cook really good.
Yeah.
Then you cook.
It's very different than running a good business.
And then you cook the books. So there's my dad joke for you. So then I think what I would say is to get as much help as you can financially to start, whether it's a mentor. Right off the bat, I hired maybe 6 months in, I hired an accounting firm, and they do my bookkeeping. They help me track jobs, and they're contractor based, and they help me keep track of jobs, help me with work in progress stuff, and what money's going to what jobs, and what still is owed, and what money's out on jobs, and they're helping me navigate some of that stuff that in the past I would have been I got a deposit, what can I do with this?
Yeah, right.
So that's if you start getting larger projects, I would say just know where that money goes, know how to divide it. I read Profit First and Profit First for Contractors, and those were really good in helping me understand how to manage the money, and I'm kind of trying to work that program, but also I'll tell you, we're here. SynkedUP has been a huge help for me, just because it's easier to manage for a smaller company, but also I feel like it'd be big enough to grow into, and I feel like you guys are helping to grow that capacity of what it can do as you grow. So I think it's going to be it's a good thing for me, because we can do stuff in the field. I don't have to be at my computer all the time punching numbers in and recreating things and trying to figure out where everything's going, because it's something we can do from our phone.
Yeah.
So just having something like that would, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah. Sure. And when I the way my head works, I'm trying to read between the lines of what you're saying. What I'm hearing is the wisdom in what you're saying is the numbers tell a story.
Yes.
They don't lie.
Right.
And and you don't have to you don't have to be in this state where, I don't know, like, yeah, I think I made money. Like, you don't have to be there.
Yeah.
Because if you stay there too long, it's just a matter of time until something goes wrong.
Right.
And you might have a good run at it for a couple of years and you're charging, you know, you're paying your bills, but if you're in that state where you don't really truly know, when things go sideways is when you get burned, because, and then it's like, well, I don't know what I need to do.
Right.
I don't know what I need to change, what costs I need to cut, or what I need to increase on, like, because you're running by the seat of your pants, which is where 90% of the contracting industry runs from. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, math is an interesting thing.
Yeah, it is.
It always adds up.
But what's interesting is, like, I know I've done this even in my personal finance. Like, oh no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But then when I finally sit down and build a bit of a budget or whatever, or solve the problem, or get a spreadsheet going, or do a budget and SynkedUP for a business, you know, it's like every time there's this sense of relief.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I know. No, doesn't make sense to buy that piece of equipment right now, but it does make sense to hire another guy, or whatever the case may be. It's different, but the numbers give you the information to make solid decisions that you don't have to second guess yourself on.
Right.
You know. So I just want to say thank you for your support of SynkedUP, and I got to say it's super rewarding for the seat I'm in to come out here, watch you, what you're doing with your business, your jobs you're putting in, some fantastic jobs, watching your Instagram and stuff, and just knowing that we're able to have a small part in the story of your success.
I think it's a bigger part than you think. So. Yeah. So.
Well, it's an honor.
And it'll continue to grow. Yeah. You're welcome, and thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
It's been good. Where can people find you?
At Schuller Outdoor Living.
On Instagram.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Do you have a YouTube channel going?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It's no tussy, you know. If you want to come spend some time and do some video, that'd be great.
Yeah. There you go. We'll have to do that.
That might be our next hire, is somebody to do some video
content creation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, with the projects you're putting in, it would be it'd be a slam dunk.
We want to show it off. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Craig.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Yeah.